Welcome to the instruction video for how to use the custom pattern generators created by Folding for Nerds and sold on Etsy.com. After you purchase, download, and open your generator, the first thing that you're going to need to do is enable macros. You will be able to enable macros in one of two ways. First is if you see the security wording at the top that says macros have been disabled, you can click this Enable Content button, and that will enable macros. If you don't see that, then you should see a message box that looks like this and has Enable Macros on the an Enable Macros button in the middle that you can click to enable macros. Once macros have been enabled, you will have full functionality of your pattern generator. The pattern generator has 7 steps that you will need to go through to be able to generate your custom pattern for your specific book. I'm going to just give a brief overview of those 7 steps and then go back through in more detail and guide you through how to use the generator. The first step is the character selection area, where you will select the characters that you want to use in your pattern. Second step is entering your book size. You will enter in the book's number of pages and the page height for your specific book. The third step is generating your pattern, where it'll take the information from above and it'll create a pattern specifically to your characters you selected and your book size. Fourth is where you can actually adjust the vertical height of your characters. That is it is an optional step, but it is a fun step to be able to create custom patterns. Fifth is a pattern preview to make sure that your pattern looks good before you move on to printing your pattern or using your pattern to fold. And sixth is your actual pattern, where it'll show you all of the different page numbers and folds you will need to create this pattern. 7 is the print preview that you can click to show a preview of your pattern that you can use to print. If you do decide not to print, you can always just use the pattern on a computer and you can mark which rows you have used using these boxes. Okay, back to step 1. Step 1 is, again, the character selection area. You'll notice there are up to 8 characters that you can use in any pattern, and the character options include uppercase, lowercase, numbers, and special characters. As well as spaces that will just be a space of 20 pages, unfolded pages in between characters. You can look at the different options by clicking on the drop-down box, and the drop-down box will show you all the different options available. You can scroll down and notice that there were the uppercase characters up top, lowercase characters in the middle, then there's the numbers and special characters, including an ampersand, a dash, plus, slash, or a heart. The space that will leave a space in between characters or can be used to reduce the number of characters you use, and I'll explain that in a minute, is represented by this underscore, and it is above the capital A, so it is the first option in the list. So you will want to choose the number of characters that you want to fold into your book, and so we're going to start off by doing a pattern for, let's say it's for the Joneses' anniversary, and their anniversary is, let's say it is 2010. So we're going to do a 1 here, a capital J here, and you can also type in the letters if that makes it easier for you. And then 0, so that is the year they were married, 2010, and Jones in the middle. And then I'm going to change this to an underscore or space so that we're only using a total of 7 characters. Okay, once I have entered in the pattern that I want to use, then I'm going to move on to, or the characters I want to use, I'm going to move on to step 2. Step 2, I will enter in the specifics for the book I want to use for this. So you'll notice that the generator, or the characters that I chose, will require a minimum of 493 pages. So you have to have a book that has more pages than that. And your page height will have to be between 16.5 and 25 centimeters, and that is shown in the instructions over here. So I'm going to enter in my page numbers. I will need to open the book and count the pages, or not count all the pages, but look and see what the last odd numbered page is, and including the number or the pages in the front of the book that might not be numbered, and then enter in that number here. And you usually want to have a book that's going to give you a few extra pages. So I'm going to say I've got a book that's 563 pages, a page height, and that is in centimeters. You just need to take a ruler to the pages and measure those, and it's 17.3. And once you enter in your book size, then you can go back and generate your pattern in step 3. Notice that the background to the pattern generator box or button is red, meaning that updates have been made and that the pattern needs to be generated before it'll preview correctly in the pattern preview and down in the pattern area. So once you click this, then your pattern will be generated and your preview will show that pattern. You can look in step 4, and if you decide to, you can adjust the vertical position of your characters that you chose. Notice in the pattern preview, we've got 1 Jones 0, and maybe we want to move the 1 so that it's actually further down. So we're going to use a -1 and shift that down, and maybe shift the 0 down as well. Or maybe you want those to be closer to the top. So we're going to actually shift them so they're at the top. So you can shift the vertical position of your characters, and it'll automatically update in the preview, and it'll also automatically update the measurements in your pattern. If you decide that you don't want any of those, you can manually go change them, or you can hit this reset vertical positions option and it'll set those back to 0 in these boxes here. And this box is showing as white because it is the character that's not being used. This space character in character 8 is not being used, so it shows up as white here because that's not an option to adjust because it's not a character in the display. Okay, so that gives us our pattern. You can go down here and look in step 6 and notice that the pattern page numbers are already showing where you need to start your pattern, and then the last page in the pattern is where you end your pattern, assuming you don't have any mistakes, and then the measurements and measurements for your folds on each of those pages. You can verify that everything looks good there just from a glance, and from your pattern preview here. And if everything looks good, then you can go to step 7 and hit print preview, and it will automatically only pull the pattern preview and your pattern in for the print, and you can see how many pages it'll take to print this if you decide to actually print it. Okay, so a few things that you need to be aware of when using this generator. If I go and decide, oh no, I made a mistake, this isn't supposed to be a 0, it's supposed to be a 2, and make that change, that means a change has been made. I'm going to have to generate the pattern again to update. And so it not only will tell you that you need to generate the pattern again, but it'll also change the number of pages needed for the pattern. In step 2, you may need to adjust the number of pages in your book or get a new book, because the number of pages might change because each character takes a different number of pages for the pattern. So you will need to look and see if you need to update there. This will actually let you know if you do not have enough pages in your book. So I'm going to show you what that looks like, but first I'm going to generate the pattern. So you can see I made a change. It says generate pattern, and then it updated the preview for you. So you've got the 1 and the 2 in your folding pattern preview. Okay, so if you decide that you want to change all of these to be capital letters, it comes up with an error and tells you that the number of pages needed for the pattern is greater than the number of pages in the book. And so we can go ahead and change this, and it'll give us that error again. But then this shows up as red, meaning that the number of pages needs to be updated, because this pattern will take 657 pages and you only have 563. And so you will need to update this. If you end up doing that, then you will need to get a new book that has more pages, and you'll also need to update the page height to fit that new book, or the page height on that new book. And so let's say we get a new book and we find out that it's got 735 pages. Okay, so that works. Say that we decided, well, I don't want to do that. I want to go ahead and use the book I had before. I don't remember how many pages that was. 653 maybe. And if you enter in a number that is lower than the number of pages needed, it will not let you do it. And also, if you enter in a number that's not odd, an even number, then it will give you an error. So it'll give you an error for either one of those, and you'll have to retry and go back and enter in another number for a different book, or you'll have to go and change your pattern accordingly. Okay, so we've changed this. Now we can go generate the pattern, and everything will update and it'll look good. So now you've got your 1 Jones 2, and so you've got your Jones in 2012. Another thing that you can do is, say you decided to change this so that it has a space between the 2, or Jones and 2, then you can go and select a space. I already showed you how you can use the space at the end to exclude a character you don't want to use, but now we're going to add a space and then a 2. And that also changed our number of pages needed for the pattern, because the space actually counts as 20 empty pages. And so you're going to generate your pattern, and you're going to notice here that the space is actually here, and what that space will be is actually 20 unfolded pages. So you'll have all these folded pages, 20 unfolded pages, and then more folded pages for your 2. So you can have a space in there, leave spaces out, you can have multiple spaces, but if you decide to, you can always just have a couple of characters in here, and the rest of these might be spaces. So this will actually, if you notice here, this will actually take 403 pages for the pattern, because it's counting this is a character, this is a character, all of these are characters. These are all considered 20 blank pages, and then this is a character. But if I change this to an underscore, that number is going to drop significantly. So it went from 400 something down to 129, because it's only counting these 2. These are the only 2 characters that it's going to use to generate your pattern. So I made an update. I need to generate pattern again. Now I'll go look down, and the display is showing only the 1 and the 2. It is showing, the displays showing up a little differently this time because we have so many pages in the book. It is actually wanting to display that your pattern is going to start on page 313, so it's showing 313, and it just doesn't have enough space to show how far the edge of the book is. So this is still showing how it's horizontally centered in the book and vertically centered, but it's not showing the remainder of all those pages. So I want to show that's kind of what you need to know for making changes to book size, making changes to characters, and using the generate pattern. But I also wanted to show what you need to be careful of when dealing with the pattern preview. I'm going to go ahead and change this back to Jones. Oh no. So let's do it like this, because there's all sorts of different options. And then we're going to say, oops, 12. So you cannot enter in more than one character into a drop down. So we're going to say Jones 12 instead of having the 1 and the 2 separated by the name. We're going to generate that pattern and look at our display. So we've got Jones 12. Let's say that we want to move the numbers so that they're all the way at the bottom of the book. So we're going to say -3. Now we want them a little closer. Let's do -4. So what happened here is I moved the 1 down so far, and let me actually show you, I'll do -5. So I moved it down so far that the 1 dropped below this green line. These green lines, the one on the top is your top of your page, and the one on the bottom is the bottom of your page. And you can see that this green line is between 16 and 18 because it is 17.3 is your page height. So first one's at 0, second one's at 17.3. Your 1 dropped below that, and so you can still use it. The pattern will still show, but it shows you that there's a potential issue here by turning these all red, meaning that this 1, if you were to use the pattern as is with this book, that 1 is going to drop below, it's actually going to get cut off at the bottom of your page. So it'll go to the edge of the page, but it'll get cut off. And so that 1, we can go find the 1 in the pattern. The 1 goes from the top, or wherever the top measurements are, down to the very bottom of the page is for your second measurement. Or actually, it goes below the page, sorry. These are showing measurements below the page, but your page isn't that long, so you won't even be able to make these measurement marks. And so you'll actually just go to the edge of the page and you won't make a second fold. Okay, so if you don't want to do that, then you can always go back and turn this to 0, and it'll go back to normal. It won't be red anymore. Or we could have always used the reset vertical position button. So there's some options. You can always play with these. Make this a, make it kind of wavy. So that it looks it's not straight in line anymore. You can maybe you can use the special characters. So maybe instead of Jones, you want to say you have Tommy and Sarah, and they got married in 2016. every once in a while, you'll need to hit the generate pattern button more than once to be able to generate it properly. Okay, so maybe you'll have a TNS 2016 for someone's wedding or something. So that's the gist of it. Those are some pattern options that you can create with this book. There are many other options using a combination of all the different letters and numbers and special characters, and then you there will hopefully be some other fonts available in the future. If you create this and you want to save it for later, do know that this is a template and you will have to save this. If you try to save it like this, it won't let you just save. You have to go to File, Save As, and then you'll have to save this out as something else so that you don't overwrite your template. And you can save this as whatever you want. These pattern generators can be used as generators to create your own books for your own personal use, or you can create books that you will sell. You cannot sell the pattern generator or create patterns that you will then sell from this generator. So if you have any questions, feel free to contact me through Etsy. I'm looking forward to getting some feedback and some thoughts on this. Thank you.